Hi everybody, I am Professor Sandeep Gupta from Engineering Minds and I will be teaching you a subject called CP जिसका full form होता है C programming. So C programming is a very important subject because this is probably the first time you will be introduced to the concepts of programming. This subject is especially more important if you have taken a stream like computers, IT, AIDS, AIML, or any other stream related to coding, related to computers. Okay. Even for others who have taken non-computer oriented fields, still this subject is very important subject because this builds the foundation of your coding concepts. So if you're weak in CP, you will always be weak in coding. Anyway, let's not waste more time and let's directly start with this particular subject. Okay. So I'll just switch off the video so that you're not distracted. So I'll switch off this video and yeah. So let's start. So now the first thing over here is what CP contains. What CP contains. So CP, as I told you, stands for computer programming. Okay. Now, what is the meaning? What is the meaning of the word programming? So first of all, in this particular subject, as I told you, we are going to study a programming language called C. Okay, we are going to study the programming language called C. In fact, for engineers, C is the first programming language which is always introduced. Now, of late, there is one more word which has become more famous, and that word is coding. So whether you say programming or whether you say coding, it is one and the same. It is same. Now the question is, what is the meaning of the word programming or what is the meaning of the word coding? So I will say that programming is the activity of writing a program or coding is the activity of writing a code. Okay. So now the next question is, what is the meaning of the word program? Now, the biggest problem with CP is that those students who are studying CP don't even know the meaning of the word program, don't even know the meaning of the word code, although you will be writing lots and lots of programs in this particular semester. So let's see what a program is. So I can say a program is a sequence of instructions which reads data, processes this data, and gives the desired output. Now, there are two more points to be explained over here, but let's understand this point by point. By the way, let me tell you one thing. In this entire, throughout this entire video, whenever you want, you can pause the video and you can copy the definitions or you can copy whatever you want. So right now, if you want, you can pause the video and you can copy the definition of the program. Okay, so it's up to you whether you're copying or not copying. All right. Now, let's understand this point. A program is a sequence of instructions which reads data, processes this data, and gives the desired output. Okay. So what happens is when you write a program, in that program, you will write many instructions, right? Instruction number 1, instruction number 2, instruction number 3, and so on, and so on. Okay. Now, what these instructions will do? So these instructions will first read some data, and the task of reading the data is called input. Then these instructions will do some kind of processing, okay? And after that, they will give you the result, which is often called output. Now, in order to explain you this concept, let's take an example. Let's take an example. Listen to the example very carefully. Now let's say I don't know how to add two numbers and I'm asking you to please give me the sum of two numbers. Okay. So I don't know how to add two numbers and I'm asking you to please give me the sum of two numbers. Now, if I ask you to give me the sum of two numbers, what is the first question which you will ask me? Can you tell me? So the first question which you will ask me is which are those two numbers? See, if you want to become a programmer, the first thing which you need is common sense. If you don't have common sense, you cannot become a programmer. Okay. So you will ask me which two numbers do you want? So I will give you two numbers, 5 and 6. In other words, now what you are doing is you are reading two numbers, 5 and 6 from me. Okay. And this is called input. Now, what will you do in your mind? You will obviously add 5 and 6. Now your mind knows that the result is 11. Will you keep quiet or will you speak out the result? What will you do? You'll speak out the result. You will tell me that the result is 11. So over here, when you read 5 and 6 from me, you are reading some data from me and that is called input. When you added 5 and 6 in your mind, you are doing some kind of processing. And when you told me that the result is 11, you gave me some output. Okay. So a program is basically a sequence of some instructions which will perform input, processing, and output. Input, processing, and output. Okay. So I hope you understood the point number one of the definition. Now let's take point number two. Point number two. Okay. Now, what is point number two? So point number two says, thus a program is a sequence of instructions given to the computer to perform a particular task. Now, what exactly this means? Okay, so let's understand this. Okay, see, now let's say you're traveling on the road. Now, when you're traveling on the road, you will see some instructions like this. What instructions? That wear seat belt while riding. Okay. Or you will see an instruction, sorry, wear seat belt while driving. Or you will see an instruction, wear helmet while driving, while riding. Okay. Now, I have two questions to ask you over here. Okay. Question number one. This instruction of seat belt is applicable to whom? It is applicable to a person who drives a four-wheeler or a person who drives a two-wheeler. The answer is four-wheeler. And helmet instruction is for whom? It is for that person who is driving, who is riding a two-wheeler, correct? So what one thing you should understand over here is that whenever we write an instruction, that instruction is meant for somebody. So when you write a program is a sequence of instructions given to the whom? Given to the computer. So when we write a program, so in the program you will write an instruction. What instruction? You may write read two numbers. So what you are doing is you are telling the computer to read two numbers. Then you will tell add two numbers. So you are telling the computer to add two numbers. Okay. Finally, point number three says that a program is always written in a programming language. So please understand, languages like English, Hindi, Marathi are called natural languages. But a language like C++, Java, Python are called programming languages in which we write a program and we communicate with the computer. So in very simple words, what is programming? So programming is basically the task of making the computer do some work for you. So when you want to communicate with the computer, when you want a computer to do some work for you, you write a program. Okay. So I hope this definition is clear to you. Okay. So although don't copy the definitions, just copy the headings over here so that you know that what all things we have done in this particular lecture. So just give the heading program. Now, after giving the heading program, let's quickly understand the problems which one may face in programming. Okay. So although this is not a part of the syllabus, but still you should know what problems you are going to face so that you are more equipped to face those problems. अब प्रोग्रामिंग का सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम ही ये है कि इट इज अ प्रोग्रामिंग सब्जेक्ट. तो प्रोग्रामिंग का मतलब क्या होता है? देखो, 99% लोगों के लिए इट इज अ न्यू सब्जेक्ट, एंड एनीथिंग विच इज न्यू इज ऑटोमेटिकली डिफिकल्ट. By the way, in school you must have done HTML, CSS. So HTML is not a programming language, it is a markup language. HTML का full form ही होता है Hypertext Markup Language. Okay. So programming is a new subject for most of you, and anything which is new is very, 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 very difficult. Keep that one thing in your mind. Okay. Now let's understand the second problem with programming. The second problem with programming is that in programming, every problem is a new problem and there are no methods for solving any problem. See, what happens is in subjects like physics, chemistry, or in engineering subjects like BEE, mechanics, क्या होता है ना? You have methods. So when you are presented with a question, you try to identify the method based on which that based on which that problem is. And if you know the method, you solve the problem. अब प्रोग्रामिंग में क्या होता है कि लेट्स टेक एग्जांपल ऑफ टू प्रोग्राम्स. ओके, write a C program to check whether a given number is prime or not. Write a C program to display factorial of a given number n. Okay, now the logic which you will use in the prime number program will be different from that of factorial program. So for every problem you'll have to think right from scratch, right from beginning. And that is why they say that programming basically teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to solve the problems creatively. But इसका डाउनसाइड क्या है? डाउनसाइड ये है कि प्रोग्रामिंग सीखने के लिए ना तुमको लॉजिक डेवलपमेंट चाहिए. And that logic development takes lot and lot of time. Why? Because it is developing, it is not learning. तो आज अगर प्रोग्रामिंग शुरू करोगे तो हो सकता है 6 महीने बाद, 4 महीने बाद तुम्हारा लॉजिक डेवलप होगा. ऑलराइट. सो इन फैक्ट there are some students who have coding, who have programming in semester 2 of engineering. Okay, तो अगर किसी का सेमेस्टर 2 में है तो बहुत अच्छा है. हम तो उनको बोलते हैं कि तुम सेमेस्टर 1 में ही चालू करो, so that by the time you reach semester 2 your coding skills, your logic is developed. Okay, anyway, all you need to do is you just need to do the homework sincerely. You just need to attend all the classes regularly so that your logic gets developed as early as possible. Anyway, so these are the problems which you may face in programming. Okay, now let's move further. Now let's start with chapter number 1. So I want you all to give the headings. भले under the heading तुम कोई details मत लिखो, खाली heading लिख के रखो so that you know what all things we have covered. So give the heading chapter number 1, fundamentals of computer programming, and then under that you write number 1, block diagram of computer. So copy this black color, copy this number 1. All right. So I assume you have copied. Now I'm sure you all know what is a computer. You must have studied a computer maybe in second standard, third standard. But here, when I'm teaching you a computer, okay, I'm teaching you from the perspective of programming. Moreover, please understand one thing, that I will be teaching you everything from scratch, assuming that you know nothing. Okay, so we are starting from the basics. By the way, what I'm teaching you now, it comes in theory exam and it could also be asked in your vivas, in your oral exams. Okay? Now, let's quickly understand the block diagram of the computer. So, कंप्यूटर में जो सबसे पहला यूनिट होता है उसको बोलते हैं इनपुट यूनिट. इनपुट यूनिट वो यूनिट होता है यूजिंग विच इनपुट इज गिवन टू द कंप्यूटर. जैसे हुआ कीबोर्ड, जैसे हुआ माउस, जैसे हुआ माइक्रोफोन एंड सो ऑन. Can you give me one more example? Can you pause the video and give me one more example of input unit? So one more example is scanner. वो भी input देता है. ठीक है. इनपुट यूनिट के बाद जो नेक्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट यूनिट है वो है मेमोरी यूनिट. एंड मेमोरी यूनिट इज स्पेशली इंपॉर्टेंट फ्रॉम आवर सिलेबस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. तो इस मेमोरी यूनिट को ना हम डिटेल में देखेंगे. तो अब हम क्या करेंगे, देखो इधर है ना, ये येलो लाइन है ना, इसके ऊपर आई एम डेवलपिंग ब्लॉक डायग्राम ऑफ कंप्यूटर, but simultaneously under the yellow line I am also developing the block diagram of memory unit. So I want everybody to give the second heading, heading number 2, block diagram of memory unit. Give this heading also. ठीक है, अब मेमोरी यूनिट क्या है तो ध्यान से सुनो. आई एम श्योर यू हैव अ सेल फोन, एंड आज की दुनिया में अ सेल फोन इज बेसिकली अ मिनी कंप्यूटर. In fact, cell phones have become more expensive than a computer. Okay. तो हर वो चीज जो कंप्यूटर में होती है वो सेल फोन में होती है. सो आई विल टीच फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ सेल फोन राइट नाउ. व्हाई? बिकॉज यू विल अंडरस्टैंड दैट बेटर. तो तुम्हारे सेल फोन में आई होप तुमको पता होगा ऐसा कुछ 128 GB होता है, 256 GB होता है. तो वो क्या है? वो बेसिकली हार्ड डिस्क है, विच इज अ टाइप ऑफ मेमोरी यूनिट. फिर तुम्हारे सेल फोन में 8 GB 16 GB होगा, वो है रैम. रैम विच इज अनदर फॉर्म ऑफ मेमोरी यूनिट. ठीक है, अभी रैम एंड हार्ड डिस्क में डिफरेंस क्या है वो सब अभी हम नहीं जाएंगे. लेट्स जस्ट अंडरस्टैंड वन थिंग, दैट अ मेमोरी यूनिट इज यूज्ड फॉर द स्टोरेज ऑफ डेटा. तो अगर डेटा स्टोर करना है, कुछ भी डेटा, भले वो फोटोग्राफ्स हो, वीडियो हो, पीडीएफ्स हो, तो मेमोरी यूनिट में स्टोर होता है. अब मेमोरी यूनिट का ब्लॉक डायग्राम इधर देखते हैं. सो द ब्लॉक डायग्राम इज वेरी सिंपल. द मेमोरी यूनिट, you have to remember this by the way, the memory unit contains a sequence of locations where each location is called a byte. I repeat, the memory unit contains a sequence of locations where each location is called a byte. One byte contains 8 bits, and a bit is either a 1 or a 0. So let's understand the definition once again. The memory unit contains a sequence of locations called bytes. One byte contains 8 bits, and a bit is either a 1 or a 0. So basically memory unit के अंदर ना सिर्फ ones and zeros होता है. अब तुम बोलोगे नहीं सर, हमने तो मेमोरी में फोटोग्राफ स्टोर किया है, वीडियो स्टोर किया है, पीडीएफ स्टोर किया है, तो वो तो 1 and 0 नहीं है. मेरा आंसर है वो भी 1 and 0 है. Everything which gets stored in the memory is stored as a sequence of ones and zeros. तो तुमने जो वीडियो स्टोर किया है, फोटोग्राफ स्टोर किया है, वो भी स्टोर हुआ है एज 1 and 0. अब वो सब कैसे पॉसिबल है वो हम बाद में देखेंगे. बाद में नहीं, अभी बस 2 मिनट में देखेंगे. ठीक है, now let's go over here. So this was the block diagram of memory unit. Now let's go back to the block diagram of the computer. कंप्यूटर का जो नेक्स्ट ब्लॉक है उसको बोलते हैं ALU, जिसका फुल फॉर्म है अरिथमेटिक एंड लॉजिक यूनिट. सो अरिथमेटिक एंड लॉजिक यूनिट वो किस लिए होता है? वो अरिथमेटिक एंड लॉजिक ऑपरेशंस करने के लिए होता है. सो फॉर एग्जांपल, ऑपरेशंस लाइक एडिशन, सब्ट्रैक्शन, डिवीजन, मल्टीप्लिकेशन, all these are arithmetic operations. देन आई होप तुमने शायद 12th स्टैंडर्ड में किया रहेगा एंड, फिर तुमने किया रहेगा और, तुमने शायद किया रहेगा नॉर. तो इसको सबको बोलते हैं लॉजिकल ऑपरेशंस. तो ये जो भी अरिथमेटिक एंड लॉजिकल ऑपरेशंस होते हैं ना, ये एएलयू के अंदर होते हैं. एएलयू के अंदर होते हैं. ठीक है, अब उसके बाद जो नेक्स्ट यूनिट है उसको बोलते हैं कंट्रोल यूनिट. अब कंट्रोल यूनिट क्या करता है, थोड़ा ध्यान से यहां देखो. द कंट्रोल यूनिट विल गिव इंस्ट्रक्शंस टू द एएलयू. तो ये जो एरो है ना, इंस्ट्रक्शंस है, और इट विल रिसीव फीडबैक फ्रॉम एएलयू. तो ये जो एरो है ना, फीडबैक है. कंट्रोल यूनिट एंड एएलयू टुगेदर कॉन्स्टिट्यूट्स वन यूनिट कॉल्ड सीपीयू. बोलो सीपीयू का फुल फॉर्म क्या है, बोलो. तो सीपीयू का फुल फॉर्म है सेंट्रल प्रोसेसिंग यूनिट. तो जो भी प्रोसेसिंग है वो सीपीयू में होना है. अच्छा, अब एक काम करते हैं, वो एग्जाम्पल लेते हैं. कौन सा एग्जाम्पल? एडिंग ऑफ टू नंबर्स. ठीक है, सो लेट्स से आई डोंट नो हाउ टू एड टू नंबर्स एंड आई एम यूजिंग अ कंप्यूटर टू एड टू नंबर्स. ठीक है, तो चलो थिंक लॉजिकली. कॉमन सेंस यूज करो, मैंने पहले भी तुमको बोला था। लेट्स से यू आर यूजिंग अ कंप्यूटर टू ऐड टू नंबर्स, तो तुम सबसे पहले क्या करोगे, बोलो क्या करोगे? तुम सबसे पहले क्या करोगे? बाय द वे, वेन एवर आई आस्क यू अ क्वेश्चन, यू कैन पॉज द वीडियो, यू कैन थिंक अबाउट द आंसर एंड देन यू कैन रेज्यूम। तो तुम सबसे पहले क्या करोगे? कीबोर्ड पे दो नंबर्स टाइप करोगे। हाँ, अब कीबोर्ड पे दो नंबर्स टाइप करने के बाद क्या होगा, ध्यान से सुनो। हाँ, वो जो दो नंबर्स हैं, ये देखो, ईदर दे आर गिवन टू द सीपीयू डायरेक्टली, हाँ, or another thing may happen. What other thing? If you're typing the two numbers on the keyboard, the two numbers may be given to memory unit and the memory unit will give it to CPU. तो ये देखो, हाँ, या तो कीबोर्ड से तुमने जो एंटर किया ना, या तो डायरेक्टली वो सीपीयू को जाएगा, या फिर वो ऐसा आएगा, मेमोरी यूनिट को जाएगा और फिर ऐसा सीपीयू को आएगा, ऐसे। ठीक है, अब सीपीयू प्रोसेसिंग करेगा, प्रोसेसिंग करने के बाद रिजल्ट रेडी हो जाएगा। तो सीपीयू क्या करेगा, वो जो रिजल्ट रेडी हुआ है ना, या तो वो रिजल्ट डायरेक्ट सॉरी, या तो वो रिजल्ट मेमोरी यूनिट को देगा, मेमोरी यूनिट को, या फिर वो रिजल्ट किसको देगा, चलो बताओ? तो वो रिजल्ट देगा आउटपुट यूनिट को। ऑलराइट, सो नाउ व्हाट इज द आउटपुट यूनिट? Instead of me explaining you the definition, can you give me some examples of output unit? So output unit का examples are very simple. एक example है monitor, okay? फिर एक example है printer, एक example है speaker. Now I will draw some arrows over here. Screen पे ध्यान से देखना. I will draw some arrows over here. You tell me those arrows are correct or incorrect. See, are the arrows correct or incorrect? Pause the video and think. So, what do you think? The arrows are correct or incorrect? The answer is incorrect, wrong. Why? Because output unit ना कभी भी डेटा देता नहीं है, वो डेटा लेता है. So the two arrows are these ones, these ones. Okay. All right. So now what you see over here, this is the block diagram of the computer. This is the block diagram of the memory unit, right? Now over here, please understand one very important thing. Please थोड़ा ध्यान से सुनना. What do you, जैसे कि मैंने बोला, we are trying to understand a computer from programming perspective. So the next point is very important. Pay attention. See, what you need to remember over here is that a computer is a digital device. Now, what is a digital device? So please pay attention. See, there are two types of devices, analog and digital. Okay. So an analog device is that device which can work on any signal, any power between plus V and minus V. So over here, now the word any is very important. A digital device can work on any signal, any power between plus V and minus V. Okay. So this is an analog device. Okay. This is the definition of analog device. Okay. On the other hand, what is a digital device? A digital device is that device which can work on, which can understand only two signals, and those two signals are either plus V. See, now I'm putting dot dot dot, or minus V, or minus V. So digital device can work, can understand only two signals, that is plus V and minus V. उसको और कुछ समझ में नहीं आता है. So basically जो कंप्यूटर है ना, वो एक डिजिटल डिवाइस है जिसको या तो प्लस वी समझ में आता है या माइनस वी समझ में आता है. अब मेरा नेक्स्ट पॉइंट एकदम ध्यान से सुनना. इफ आई वॉज अ बीडब्ल्यू टीचर, if I was a BEE teacher or physics teacher, then I would have called this as plus V and minus V. But because I am a coding teacher, आज के बाद हम उसको प्लस वी एंड माइनस वी नहीं बोलेंगे. आज के बाद हम क्या करेंगे, जो प्लस वी है ना, इसको हम बोलेंगे 1 एंड माइनस वी को हम बोलेंगे 0. So now what I may say, I may now say that a computer is a digital device which understands only ones and zeros. I repeat, a computer is a digital device which understands only ones and zeros. तो क्या होता है ना, तुम कंप्यूटर पे कितने सारे काम कर सकते हो. यू कैन इवन, आई मीन, अ कंप्यूटर इज द वन विच इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर सेंडिंग अ रॉकेट टू द मून. Okay, all the nuclear reactors are controlled by the computer, so you can perform such complex activities using a computer. But in the end, कंप्यूटर को सिर्फ वन एंड जीरो ही समझ में आता है. और जो वन एंड जीरो का जो लैंग्वेज है ना, इसको बोलते हैं मशीन लैंग्वेज, या फिर शायद तुम लोग इसको बोलते हो बाइनरी लैंग्वेज. बट अभी हम इसको बोलेंगे मशीन लैंग्वेज. ठीक है. अच्छा, नाउ द क्वेश्चन इज कि कंप्यूटर को अगर वन एंड जीरो ही समझ में आता है, तो ऐसे कैसे हम उस पर इतना कॉम्प्लेक्स टास्क कर सकते हैं. तो उसका आंसर है कंपाइलर. कंपाइलर. नाउ व्हाट इज द कंपाइलर? वेरी सिंपल. I'll tell you the definition first and then I will explain you the definition. So, what is the compiler? Listen. A compiler is itself a program that translates our program written in C language to machine language. नहीं समझा? कोई बात नहीं, चलो एग्जाम्पल लेते हैं. So when you write a program in C language, you will write statements like these. समझो ऐसे, C is equal to A plus B semicolon. Now this statement I can understand, you can understand, but not the computer. कंप्यूटर को नहीं समझ में आता है, क्योंकि तुम्हारे लिए जो ये स्टेटमेंट है ना, वो कंप्यूटर के लिए शायद ये स्टेटमेंट है, ये. इसको बोलते हैं हाई लेवल लैंग्वेज. बाय द वे, सी, जावा, पाइथन, C++ सबको बोलते हैं हाई लेवल लैंग्वेज. हाई लेवल लैंग्वेज का मतलब वो लैंग्वेज जो इंसान को समझ में आता है. और इसको बोलते हैं मशीन लैंग्वेज, जो मशीन को समझ में आता है, कंप्यूटर को समझ में आता है. सो द प्रॉब्लम इज, you can write statements only in high level language, but a computer can understand only machine language. So the problem is something like this. Like what? You can speak and understand only English, but your friend can speak and understand only French. So what do you need in between? You need a translator, which is called compiler. तो कंपाइलर बेसिकली क्या करेगा, तुम जो सी प्रोग्राम लिखोगे ना, उसको वंस एंड जीरोस में कन्वर्ट करेगा, और उसके बाद ही प्रोग्राम रन होगा. सो इफ आई आस्क यू इन वन वर्ड, अब मैं तुमको अगर वन वर्ड में पूछूं कि भाई कंप्यूटर क्या काम करता है, तो कम ऑन, कैन यू पॉज द वीडियो एंड थिंक अबाउट इट. सॉरी, कंप्यूटर नहीं, कंपाइलर. अगर मैं तुमको एक वर्ड में पूछूं कि कंपाइलर क्या काम करता है, तो तुम क्या बोलोगे? तो वो करता है ट्रांसलेशन का काम, ट्रांसलेशन. But before translation, the compiler performs one more activity called error checking. अब error checking क्या होता है? देखो क्या होता है ना, every language has a syntax. I repeat, every language has a syntax. Syntax मतलब grammar. For example, अगर इधर मैंने semicolon नहीं डाला, okay, तो it's wrong syntax. So what compiler will do, it will check whether the program is following the syntax of the language. And only if it is following the syntax of the language, it will do translation. So compiler performs two activities, error checking and translation. All right. So I hope you understood this much. So this was a short explanation of lecture number 1 of C programming. Okay.